Hey everyone, this is Jake Fife,
And this is Chris.
and welcome to the first episode of the Fife Files podcast. And this is something that we're going to do weekly, every Friday. And it should be me and Chris for now. We're looking to have a few guests on
I know
here.
you've already been talking to a couple of people, so that'll be in the future.
Yep.
And I'm kind of curious to see how this plays out and what it evolves into. So if there's any type of discussion or topic or anything you'd like to, for us to research or delve into or discuss, please let us know.
And of course, if you have any thoughts, comments on not just shows you would like to see, but the quality of the audio, the video, slideshow, or anything like that, feel free to comment below. But Chris, I believe for our first episode, we're going to talk about some of our experiences that we've had in the field, which is going to be pretty cool because on different podcasts I've gone into some of my experiences, but we've never really delved into your experiences.
I've had a few over the years.
Just a few.
Just a few. Just enough to keep me interested.
So first off, when you think of paranormal experience for you, what pops in your mind first off?
Oddly enough, there was probably the White Shadow. That's probably the story that pops in my head. I was younger and I was in our front yard, and this is the house I finished growing up in West Virginia. And you ever get that feeling that something just isn't right?
Yeah.
And I just kept feeling that something wasn't right, and I kept feeling like something was watching me. Well, growing up in the woods, if you feel like something's watching you, something's probably watching you. So, I got to looking around, and I thought I seen something dark between two trees. And the only thing I could describe it as is, I said white shadow, but it was like this white form that I would just catch moving in the trees. And anybody that's grew up in the woods knows that, trees get pretty dense, that it's hard to track, it's hard to look through. And this was during the summertime, so everything was in, full leaf canopy and all that. But I just remember watching that white shape dart back and forth through the trees.
So when you saw this white shape, what was the first thing that came to mind?
I didn't know what it was. And, of course, you get that adrenaline spike, that flight or fight. And I remember just really inching toward the door, and I didn't feel threatened, but at the same time, I didn't feel comfortable.
Right.
So I remember just, trying to track it, trying to watch it. And there for a little while, it looked like it was trying to get closer and closer. But then eventually it just, faded into the brush, and I couldn't see it.
Was that the only time you ever saw this flash?
For lack of a better term, flash. Yeah, that's the only time I can remember right off the top of my. It just wasn't something natural.
Yeah. With your experiences, when you see or hear or feel something, what is typically the first thing you do?
I get real still. And I know that sounds simplistic, but not just like freezing, I try to make myself as physically and mentally still as I can.
Yeah.
And that way, it turns on those senses. What am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I feeling? And that way you can take in, because, face it, everything in the world is not paranormal. So sometimes, something can happen and it's like, what was that? And you stop and you really look around and it's like, oh, well, that vent kicked on it. And that's why I got that, sudden brush of air across my, leg or, something like that. But I always try to make myself as still and as calm as possible. So that way I can really examine my surroundings.
And do you think that whether you experience something like this on an investigation or you're outside playing, would your methods of handling it be the exact same for both? Or when you're on an investigation, does it change?
Not really.
You're just armed with equipment.
Yeah, when you're on an investigation, and sometimes I think, for me personally, you have to be careful how much equipment you have with you. I think equipment in the end can become as much of a distraction, as a tool.
Right.
Everybody loves tools. I mean, when you're doing a job or you're doing a hobby or whatever, sometimes the more tools you have and the correct tools and knowing how to use the tools, enhance the experience. But
right.
I think it's easy to become distracted by the tools that you have. When we're on investigations, I like having either a meter, my flashlight, or a camera. Keep it. I like to keep it real simple.
Yeah.
With what I'm fooling with. And like I said, I love tech. Do not get me wrong. We've played with some interesting toys that some people have, and I have a little bit of envy. There's a few things that I would like to add to our arsenal, but I think you have to be careful. You have to watch that thin line.
Yeah, like I know for me, I definitely agree. The less equipment, the better for our personal approach to it.
Not necessarily less equipment. I mean, there's equipment that I want for us.
Right.
But I think when you go into an area, it has to be relevant equipment. Mm-hmm. You have to have knowledge of the equipment.
Right.
And the equipment can't be a distraction.
Right, because if you see something and you've got 10 gadgets on you, you're going to take time to see if all 10 gadgets are working,
right,
pointing in that direction.
Where you could have the same experience with if you've got a EMF meter out and it spikes, and then you've got something that measures cold, and those are passive. You don't have to actually be fooling with them. And they correlate. Then wow, you just got an awesome piece of evidence.
Yeah.
So I'm not against equipment. In no shape, form, or fashion am I against equipment. I just think you have to be knowledgeable about the equipment. I mean, when we first started using the EMF meter, you didn't know that when you moved around with it, you could have false positives. It's better.
Right.
I mean, I like walking with it, but you have to be really still and really careful.
Or on certain hardwood floors, like the really old ones, when you step close to it, it sets it off.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that you have to learn.
Yeah.
Wiring in the walls, even without electricity, wiring can still set it off. It's these little things that we've learned through the years.
And it's pretty cool to learn them because you make, little discoveries, new ways to use equipment, how to utilize it, and there's new ideas for new types of equipment.
Right.
Or in the theme of experiments we want to try with equipment to see how does this react to these old wires, old piping, different things like that.
Well, yeah, that's a good way to repeat. But I want to get back to the pure way of doing it. I mean, all the old stories, they start with, it was a dark and stormy night. It's not a story of, it was a dark and stormy night, and he had his EMF detector out. It's just, I really want to get back to, the core of this. What's the individual experiencing? And then we can build off of that and add equipment back to the experience. Slight mental shift and slightly different way of looking at it.
But still interesting nonetheless.
All right.
Now, we've done quite a few investigations, I'd say, in the past few years. Out of those investigations, is there an experience that sticks out in your mind?
This is the one that sticks out in my mind. And very rarely will I ever look back at life and go, wow, I wished I'd have done that different. Because usually, you accept your decisions, you move on.
Right.
But that night that we were at St. Albans, and we went through the door, and then all of a sudden we could hear the slamming. You remember that?
It was like every door in the building was shaking.
And it was like we had that split-second moment where it's like, do we go get equipment or do we run toward the sound? We chose to go back and get equipment. To this day, I wish we'd have went ahead and went forward.
Because we walked into the building, and it sounded like the boiler room door.
It sounded like it was opening and shutting.
It sounded like open and shutting.
Right.
And then it sounded like other doors were opening and shutting too.
But that one had to be the boiler room because the sound was coming up the stairs, and that's the heaviest door I know of in that building is that boiler room door. And like I said, to this day, I wish we would have went on downstairs.
Especially since I'm thinking a few minutes earlier, did we leave from that area or did we investigate that area earlier?
We had investigated that area earlier. And remember, we were going to go back. We were going to get the trail camera because the only thing we had with us was the flashlight because my phone was dead. The camera was dead.
Yeah, because we were going to go retrieve the
trail cam
from the second floor hallway. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. We weren't even going to investigate.
No, we were thinking about doing EVPs and stuff as we went, and that was it. But we wanted that video evidence, And to this day, I wonder, what would we have seen? What would we have experienced if we went on down there?
I mean, because if something's slamming that
heavy
door,
people think that people like us and the people listening and all that that there is something slightly wrong with people that run towards stuff like that.
As much as I love running towards odd stuff like that, because I was like, holy crap, what are we going to see in here? I have to admit, there was not really apprehension, but just like a little, should we go down there? Because if something is powerful enough to open and slam that big door and the other doors in the building, what is it? It's more for me of what it was instead of who it was.
Well, it was definitely a what.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, to anybody listening, that is an assumption, I guess,
Right.
But, that's just, based on experience and what I was feeling at the time, and all that. I don't know that was a who. But yeah, and it's sad that is such a a trope in this field that if only I'd had my camera,
Yeah.
But that's the way it works, and I'm wondering if we take our investigations and have part of our investigation where it is just personal experience. What would we experience? Because
It's an interesting idea.
We go to a lot of locations and we're there for 8 hours, 6 hours, or more. What if we took an hour of that and left all the equipment, just a flashlight?
So it takes like a Scooby-Doo approach, just walking around looking for the ghosts.
Oh, Scooby-Doo, that probably influenced my early paranormal days more than anything. I love that cartoon.
Well, I mean, in theory, look at all the experiences they had. Now, granted, they did turn out to just be the caretakers or something like that, but they still had experiences.
Right.
So that is kind of an interesting idea, and it's also with your the whole idea of going back to the earlier methods of investigation.
Right. Lighting a candle.
Yeah.
That was one of the big things that we used is, and there was a whole thing built up around candle flames. How the flame burned, what color was it, and all that. I can remember reading and then, making my own journals and like recording, well, at this point in time, the candle flame was steady. And,
right.
And there was a whole lot of that went into it. Keep in mind, my first ghost hunting kit was a candle, a compass, a 110 camera. Most people don't even know what a 110 camera is. And then that big old bulky dinosaur tape recorder.
Oh, yeah.
And
that's actually in the kit that's sitting right behind you.
Yeah, and then a notebook and a pencil. I mean, that was my whole first kit.
So, do you think having less equipment helps experiences?
No. I don't,
Or do you think...
But I think that's an interesting experiment that I want to try.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying less equipment or more.
Well, I mean,
I'm not...
from the spirit's perspective, do you think that the spirits would be more likely to go someone who has just a voice recorder and a flashlight versus someone with a DVR system, a spirit box, and a bunch of other stuff?
Well, think about when you go to somebody's house, okay? You go visit somebody.
Right.
When you go in their living room and you're sitting there and they're wanting to talk to you, and you pull out your phone and start texting the guy down the road or playing some,
Yeah.
If somebody comes to our house, a guest, and start behaving like that, we'd be thinking, what a, butthole, or whatever. Yeah. Like I said, I'm a firm believer, ghosts are people. They're just in a slightly different realm of existence than we are. So you go to somebody's house, and you're saying you want to talk to them, but the whole time you're looking down into a camera or you're fiddling with something. Think about it. I mean,
the next time we go to someone's house, let's just take the Spirit Box K2, plop down in their living room, set the equipment up.
Yeah.
We are here at this person's house on such and such date, such time. All right, let's start this conversation. Yeah. And just see what they would do.
Yeah, I'll tell you what my reaction would be.
They'd probably kick you out.
And that's another thing I want to do. I want to do more of the live mic experiments.
Yeah.
Where we just take a live mic hooked to a speaker and a recorder and just lay the microphone down and see if anything speaks on it. Because with the theory of electronic voice phenomenon, and all that, why couldn't that work over a microphone?
Right.
And then that would prove, not prove, but it would cut down into the false positives of a spirit box,
right.
Bleed overs, or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, now we've got to the point where we had some great success with the spirit box.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't believe in the spirit box or I don't want to have anything to do with a spirit box.
There are a lot of what ifs with it.
There's a lot of what ifs, and we set out with this to get some concrete answers.
Right.
If we can ever find concrete answers. It's the world of the paranormal. Sure, we'll get concrete answers.
Yeah.
But to narrow it down to make it as viable evidence as possible. And why I believe in the spirit box, and I think it's a tool that works. Mm-hmm. Every conversation we've ever gotten into with anybody, and we bring up a spirit box clip, it always goes back to could it have been radio, and you have to concede that yes,
Mm-hmm. Although it's kind of frustrating sometimes because if you have a really good spirit box response, you ask, "Was there a battle here?" and a voice says, "Yes, there was a battle here." You're always going to have the verse say, could a radio DJ have been saying, "Yes, there was a battle here that night"? And you can't.
It all depends on the level of skeptic too, because
right.
you could take your ghost friend Ted to go visit Skeptic A and say, "Hey, Skeptic A, this is Ted. He would like to say, hey, I'm real and I exist," and they're not going to believe it.
Right.
So sometimes some people, they don't want to be convinced. They don't want to, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I have no issues with that, no qualms about it. Only time I have a qualm with it is when they attack a piece of evidence or an investigator when it's not a warranted attack.
Yeah.
I don't mind anybody questioning our stuff.
Right.
I mean, we've learned a lot, and from people that have been, don't want to use the word detractor, but brought up questions about some of the evidence we put out, or some of the experiences we had. I can think of 2 or 3 right off the top of my head that we learned stuff from those people.
Yeah.
And through interaction with them, they realized, well, okay, they're not hoaxers. They just, and it was, it makes it a cool experience.
Oh, heck yeah. Going back to experiences, last year, it seems like we had more personal experiences at locations than any other year that I can remember. And one, it is because we did more locations.
Right.
But the one personal experience that sticks out in my mind, aside from the St. Albans one and all that stuff, is the voices, the crying, and the footsteps from the Exchange Hotel walkthrough. That was weird. Because the investigation hadn't even started yet, and we were having voices in another room. We were hearing footsteps on that 3rd floor, and we were able to record it during the investigation.
The light blowout on command.
Yep.
And you get things like that. And that's another thing. I noticed that it seems like when we're either first starting or when we have the least amount of equipment is when the most things happen.
Yeah.
Remember Nickerson Sneed? The only equipment that was even on was the flashlight and camera I had in that door. The one door in the room we were in just kind of rattled and shook. Then the front door flew open.
That was kind of a wild experience. And the sound of something being drugged in
upstairs.
The red room.
Right.
That was during a seance we were doing. That was the first time I'd ever been a part of a seance. And Chris is standing at the edge of the room with... You were using your phone, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, you were using your phone. You had a flashlight. We're all sitting there. We're holding hands. And someone was asking a question. You can hear... It sounded like boots upstairs walking from... I don't know the name of the room, but it's down the hallway to the far left above the kitchen. It sounded like something walked up the 2 stairs into the room and just a dragging motion. And it was weird because you sit there, it's like, I can hear you.
Right.
It's like, this is happening. We're all looking at each other. This isn't like, oh, we thought we heard a footstep or something. This clear. Is,
And so everybody in the house was in that one room.
Right. And everyone was accounted for.
Yeah.
Now, was it after that or the second time we heard the footsteps that you ran upstairs and did a sweep to see if people were there?
Well, I went every time, but, every time we would hear it, I'd go upstairs.
Right.
Couple eerie feelings. One time I thought I seen something out of the corner of my eye, but the footsteps never repeated themselves or anything like that while I was upstairs. Because even when it blew the door open, I went and checked outside, went around, made sure nobody was around. I closed the door, then I went upstairs.
It was that was definitely a pretty wild experience, and it brings up the question. They can do stuff in other rooms from far away that we can hear the one in the room next to us, but why do you think they stop there? They don't fully enter the room and communicate with us. Well, if they can make the sound of something dragging upstairs and running up and down the hallway, why couldn't they have come in the room and shown themselves or opened a door, something like that?
Well, I've had stuff like that happen, in the past. I've seen things flung across the room.
Yeah.
Doors slam in my face, all kinds of stuff like that. So you're talking about in that instance, I wonder how many people at the table were like, oh crap, because I think our mental impressions and what we're thinking in the inside, because somebody can say, oh yeah, let's go hunt some ghosts on the outside, but inside they might be saying, oh crap, that's scary as sin. I don't want nothing to do with that. I hope it don't come in here.
I've seen so many horror movies, I know how this ends.
Right, this is not going to end well for us,
Yeah.
So, how much of that's going on? And, then that raises the question, can they hear our thoughts, or can they pick up on the intonation and the meaning of our thoughts? And how much do our thoughts play into what happens to us in the physical / metaphysical realm? I mean, you're starting to get into some heavy topics when
Yeah.
you bring that up, because how much do you think your mental capability and all that can shape the reality around you?
Right.
And I've read studies on that, and I've read different things on that. Everything from survivalist pamphlets saying the best tool to survive is to decide you're going to survive,
Right.
all the way up to some of the teachings of metaphysics and yogis and things like that. What is the power of the human mind? How far can it go? What can it achieve? How much can it influence?
So it's basically you see what your mind can see.
To a point. Because you start getting into how much of this is mentally created. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's the whole concept of a tulpa? A tulpa is nothing more than a thought form.
Mm-hmm.
So can a tulpa be projected? What was that study they did in Canada? What was the Philip?
Yeah, they
Remember
created.
Philip? They totally created Philip out of thin air.
Yeah, they had the
Philip-
backstory for him.
Philip got out of hand.
Yeah.
And it was totally. And if nobody's ever read that experiment, awesome experiment. They just took an old house up in Canada. They got these people together. I can't remember how many was in the group, but they literally passed out pamphlets on, and they told the people this house is not haunted. There was no history of any type of haunting.
Yeah.
No
It was just
Indian
a normal
burial ground.
old house.
No, nothing. Just a normal, vanilla, run-of-the-mill house. But they created this character named Philip. They gave him a backstory. They gave him a tragic end. They gave him, they created all this stuff out of thin air. Well, it didn't take, but what was it, 2 or 3 days into the experiment? Yeah. Philip started having spirit communications, stuff disappearing around the house, and all kinds of this paranormal activity from a ghost
that doesn't exist
that they created.
Yeah.
So how much of that plays into it, I don't know. Because I think that some of it can be. How much do you believe in telekinesis? How much do you believe in telepathy? I mean, how much do you believe in that type of stuff? But at the same time, people say, well, but the ghost knew things that none of us did. Yeah, and that's the reason I'm still thinking that, there might be such a thing as ghosts. Because, sometimes we do get information, or we do get something that nobody in the group knows about. So, the question in my mind is still out.
Yeah.
That went totally in left field.
I was about to say, that was almost like an enlightened trip. Thank you for that, Chris.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for.
Like I'm coming down from, wow, man.
Well, I don't know about all that. But, I mean, there's just so many questions like that in this field.
And it's part of the fun of the paranormal is finding answers, or trying to find answers.
And, and some people look around, and I thought this was always neat about the paranormal world. Some people are like, they come at it from a metaphysical angle, or they come at it from a spiritualist angle, or they just come at it from, an open-minded angle. And you get all these different things mixing together, and all, when you go to like, a conference or a paracon, or, meet up with a, haunted tour group or things like that. To me, that's the neat thing, I have my own, I guess, for lack of a better term, dogma built up in my head, but I don't expect anybody else to subscribe to the same things that I think.
Right.
And sometimes I get, to hear some neat things that other people think. So I think it's so important for us to all stay open-minded to, other people's beliefs and ideals.
Wise words.
I try every now and again.
So, what is one location that you want to try and investigate this year?
You know what popped in my head?
What, first off?
Winchester Mystery House.
Really?
I have.
Is it because the movie?
There was a movie about it?
The Winchester movie. Isn't that about the Winchester house?
I don't know. I didn't even know there was a Winchester movie. Is there a movie about the house?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's what it's about.
Now, I've watched documentaries about the house, but never a movie.
Yeah. The Winchester.
I will have to pull that up. I didn't know that. No, since I was young, I've had a fascination with the Winchester Mansion.
I mean, it's a house designed by and for spirit. They're still finding rooms of that place. Which is kind of weird to think, because you walk around outside, it's like, okay, these are the parameters of what can possibly be inside. You would think after all that time we would have found everything.
But no.
I guess not.
Well, we lived in a house when you were younger. We lived in a house that had a hidden room in it that we didn't know until we'd been there for 2 years, almost 3 years, and happened to find a hidden room in it. I mean, so you never know.
Especially since it's, designed by spirits.
What, the house we lived in? No, the Winchester house. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that one
maybe
too.
That was too. But no, I mean, the Winchester house is just, like I said, it's just always fascinated me. Always fascinated me.
It's got it it has an interesting history. I don't know whether to call it tragic history, interesting history. It's more.
You can just leave it at history. I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, of course, the Winchester rifle is just like anything else. It's a tool, It's an awesome rifle. But, and it really helped a lot of settlers and soldiers and everybody else. And,
And then the idea that everyone who's killed by one, here's a place you can go. That's kind of an interesting place. Like a paranormal safe house, maybe?
I don't know. But now she designed it to keep the spirits at bay.
Yeah.
To confuse them and all of that.
Yeah.
So, it's just an interesting house. Like I said, I'd love to go and just have full run of it and be able to explore it. That's always been, that's my big wish list right there. That would be number one.
You know what popped in my mind, number one?
What?
Bobby Mackey's.
Bobby Mackey's.
Yep. I mean, we could do a whole show on Bobby Mackey's. Because there's so much that the local legends, the history, the claims.
I was going to say, you hit the nail on the head. How much is legend and how much is substantiated?
Right. Now, is there a chance that the legend, the part that it's not historically true, but it's because it's believed to be true, it's been created?
That goes back to, who knows?
So, I mean, let's take, I'm sure I'm 98% sure this happened, but the death of Pearl Bryant. What if that never happened, but where the story was passed down years and years, people, every time they went there, they say, okay, this is where this happened, this was who she was, kind of like with Phil. They create that. Do you think, and not just, I'm not saying that's what happened with Pearl Bryant, but with the other spirits out there, do you think that's what could have happened there and maybe other locations?
That's been a big theory, that wandering spirits that are whats instead of whos can masquerade.
Right.
That's,
like a tricksters.
And that goes into too. I've mentioned it to you. I haven't really talked about it on camera or with a lot of other people or anything. But I think that is there a common thread through most paranormal activity? How much of it is just mental?
Yeah.
And that's always been a big question in my mind. I mean, I've even read Bigfoot cases and heard Bigfoot cases and all that where they disappear into a puff of smoke. It's like, what?
Well, you look at the Sierra Nevadas one, where they were like in their own force field. There were the orbs that would follow the Bigfoots.
Yeah, so...
I mean, that sounds very paranormal, extraterrestrial-like.
Right.
But it's about a basic modern Gigantopithecus, allegedly.
Well, who knows?
Well, Lorraine Warren had the telepathic communication.
Right.
With the young one.
Right.
That doesn't sound like something that Gigantopithecus were able to do.
Or were they? I mean, there's so many open-ended questions there that you just don't know.
That would be kind of cool to have. I don't know. Having a telepathic communication with a Bigfoot, that would be kind of interesting. Just to be out in the woods and then a voice just pops in your mind. Oh,
you've never had that happen, huh?
I have not.
It's not all that cool, but I guess it could be.
Well, I mean, if... I don't know, if it's a person doing it...
But how do you know it is?
Right.
I mean, it's like these, quote-unquote spirit communications. At what point can you verify 100% who you're speaking to?
Yeah.
And to me, that's always like, any type of spirit communication we've ever done, whether it's seance or Ouija board or, whatever, there are precautions you take.
Oh, heck yeah.
And all that because you don't know who you're talking to.
Yeah. And sometimes it's the locations that all they hear is footsteps around going up the stairs. That's the only claim of the location. You may have all hell break loose at that location.
Right.
So definitely what you taught me from the very start was no matter where you're going, when you're going, always be as prepared as you can be.
Right, because you never know.
Right.
Like I said, I've been in haunted places from, old homes to brand new trailers.
Right.
Empty parking lots. I mean, you just never know when you're going to run into the paranormal.
The spirit of parking lot 42.
I think it was actually parking lot 37.
I know.
But anyway.
So what is one location, paranormal, stick to that you will never investigate because it's either creepy, dangerous, spiritually dangerous, but what is one place you do not want to go?
I really don't have won't do. Clown Hotel.
Really? That's your number one? My number one, it's pretty obvious, the Island of the Dolls.
I'll say now I would do that.
Really?
I would be okay with dolls.
With dolls. It's an entire island with dolls that have allegedly drowned people.
I'm fine with that. It's just, I hate
Okay. You're fine with an isolated island, which the only people that can get to you are like down the river a little bit. They have canoes. They don't have speedboats. They have canoes. Hundreds of dolls that have killed people, allegedly. And you'd rather investigate...
Allegedly. There's nothing alleged about how creepy clowns are.
It's a clown motel with clown paintings on the wall, a few statues in the lobby.
I hate clowns.
And there's
no
apparition.
offense to anybody out there that's a clown. It's just, I think there's certain dividing lines in this world. Like, either you love or you hate bagpipe music. Either you love or you hate clowns.
So would you investigate the ghost of a bagpipe player?
Yeah, sure.
Really?
Yeah, I'm fine with bagpipes, but I'm not fine with clowns. Just something creepy about clowns for me.
Clown. Well, I mean, clowns are creepy. I don't like clowns either, but I think I'd rather do the clown motel than killer dolls.
No, I'm okay with that.
Okay. Well, I mean, if they're small enough, you could just kind of kick them.
Okay, Mr. High and Mighty, I'm going to sit here and judge you. Let's go look for Michigan Dogman.
No, we are not.
Okay. Everybody has their thing.
Dogmen and Wendigos.
I would take some. No. I'd take some Alpo and drive north. I mean, I'm fine with Dogmen, but I'm actually finer with Dogman than I am Bigfoot. Something about Bigfoot.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Dogman is.
I'm not scared of Bigfoot per se, but at the same time, there's something that whenever I'm around where I hate to say where there is a Bigfoot, but where there is
where it feels like there's one.
Feels like there's one and all that. I don't know. It affects me in different ways than when we're like around spirit energy.
Now, see, I would think that you wouldn't want to do Dogmen equal because Dogmen are seen as a more aggressive version of Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Because a lot of Bigfoot encounters, unless it's like the Siege of Hanaboa or that the mining camp in California, they more or less just leave you alone. It's like, hey guys, I'm Bigfoot. Try to take a photo of me. It'll always be blurry and grainy and shaky. I'm going to be on my way. But with Dogman, it's, I'm going to eat your guts.
I had a friend
no matter what.
That he swears to this very day that a Bigfoot saved his life, And I've heard those stories, but like I said, anytime I'm around, it just, I don't know. It's just a different feeling.
Huh.
I can't put my finger on it. I'm not going to try to explain it, but, it's just, there it is.
You notice another one that's, when you look at the descriptions of it, the sketches of it, it's probably the creepiest looking entity thing for me, but I would still check it out. Jersey Devil.
Yeah, I'm interested in Jersey Devil.
I mean, it's creepy as all get out.
Do you know the Pine Barrens come all the way down south to Richmond?
Yeah.
I did not realize that.
And technically, the Jersey Devil haunts the Pine Barrens.
Right.
It doesn't say the New Jersey Pine Barrens. It says the Pine Barrens.
I thought about that.
I'm like,
So if we make a announcement that we're going to the woods outside of Richmond,
we're gonna look for the New Jersey Devil in Richmond, Virginia.
Why not?
Don't. there is something funny about that, but now I want to go look and see if there's been any Jersey Devil sightings in Virginia, Maryland.
I know that they're around Richmond there for a while. They were having different like Territorn quick sightings and all that.
Territorns are creepy.
Jersey Devil, big winged creature.
But, that's kind of different from a Territorn. A Territorn's more like a 20 to 25 foot wingspan eagle.
Okay, you're out doing something. You're raking leaves, and all of a sudden something flies over and goes, and all that. And you just get a quick glimpse, It's so hard for people, and this isn't a cut. I mean, I'm just as guilty. When you see something that, just in a split second, and that adrenaline gets pumping, and all that, sometimes your mind will distort what you see.
A 2-foot fish becomes an 8-foot fish.
No, that's just straight up. You're allowed to lie when you're fishing. I have taught y'all that since you're small. When you're fishing, you're allowed to lie. That's okay. But no, I mean, seriously, your mind will exaggerate things, in your head to make that fight or flight response even stronger.
Which is why it's good to have a GoPro on you. We tried that once. I'm just gonna say that it was stupid looking the way I had it. I looked like a high-tech, low-budget Ghostbuster.
Yeah.
I mean, you know me. Ooh, think about it. If I had it on my chest, it'd be almost like Iron Man's paracord thing.
That'd be kind of cool.
That'd be kind of funny.
But we do want to, and there's a couple of different bullet cams I've seen, and things like that. I do want us to have something to where whatever we're looking at
it can be picked up.
It can be picked up.
Right. Ooh, what about those, I know they have them in sunglasses form, but I don't know if they have them in regular glass form, but the cameras that record high quality video and the audio.
I saw those, and I think they're pretty interesting, and I would wear that before I would one on the top of my head.
I mean, we would have to get over the whole idea of wearing the sunglasses at night, unless
I'm pretty sure you could change the lenses, or
the sunglasses at night. Paranormal team. We'd look like.
Wasn't that a song? I wear my sunglasses.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Thank you. The entire time we'll be doing the rest of the show, I'm going to have that song in my mind.
You're welcome. That's part of what I'm here for. So, no, I mean, it's just... No, I really don't have one I wouldn't do. Like I said, clowns, I don't like clowns. Bigfoot makes me... I won't use the word nervous, but I feel more on edge when I'm around... Not the woods. I'm quite comfortable in the woods.
It's just... Bigfoot woods.
But Bigfoot woods, Bigfoot areas where Bigfoot's around, or what else, it makes me anxious, for lack of a better term.
So would you be comfortable, something like Bigfoot, doing like sound blasting, where you stay at a fixed location, you're not trying to go towards it? Do you think you'd be more comfortable that way because you're at your comfortable position that you have chosen, you're not... going towards its
How armed am I?
I know, but there's that psychological thing. Okay, I'm entering its territory to go look for a thing, versus this is the spot I feel comfortable in. I picked out. I have everything I need, backup and all that stuff. I'm just going to sit here, and every 10 seconds I'm going to hit play and hear the echo.
But you're talking about a creature that if it's a flesh and blood creature is anywhere between 7 to 10 foot tall.
Right.
On average.
And it doesn't look like the
I think
Sasquatch.
And I think it's they're pretty strong, resilient, take a ton of damage. So I don't really think it matters if I'm on its turf or my turf. If we just go with it being a physical creature, I think wherever I am, if it wants me, it's going to get me. And let alone, let's take it into, the next, take the next step up. A lot of lore, a lot of legends surrounding it and all that is that it's not a pure flesh and blood creature.
Right.
That it's one of those creatures that has 1 foot in the physical world and 1 foot in the spirit world.
Right.
So, then you're talking about a whole nother ball game.
There's a lot that definitely goes into it.
I'm interested in Bigfoot, and I think Bigfoot stories are cool.
Yeah.
I was just listening to a couple the other day.
Yeah.
Love Bigfoot stories. Give me a movie with a Bigfoot in it, even if it's a B movie, I'm happy. And would I go looking for a Bigfoot or go out, on a Bigfoot expedition? Yeah, I would be interested in doing that.
It's just if you start seeing one, you might start walking in the opposite direction.
No, I don't. I believe
if you're gonna do something, stick with it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna play it to the hilt, and what's the old saying? In for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah.
So no, I would definitely play it out. But like I said, Bigfoot to me is it's a different type of experience.
So going back to experiences, last year, what would you say one location you investigated had the most substantial experiences?
I don't know, because we went to a few good locations last year. And some of the ones that we didn't get a lot of evidence from or didn't have a lot of experiences from, that don't mean that there's nothing there.
It just means that one night
or that one instance.
Yeah.
Right. So, I don't know. We went to St. Albans so many times.
To be fair, we went to St. Albans twice last year. We went March 10th.
It seemed like it was
November 11th.
How many times have we been there total?
Okay,
I think that's what it is.
Hold on, we've went.
St. Albans is a great location, and I know we've said that before in the past, but
we've been there 5 times that I can count
in the last year and a half.
Yes, since April 2nd, 2015 was our first time. Actually, 2016.
So a little bit over 2 years. And like I said, I love St. Albans. It's a great location, great people.
Yeah.
And we have a ton of fun anytime we go there. And
whether their spirits are active or not.
No, I mean, it's the group there. we've almost went every time with the same set of guides.
Yeah.
And
I think the last time, and then the private investigation we did was the very first time it was kind of us to our own devices in the building. And
that was an interesting experience.
Yeah. Like when we went November 11th for the event we were speaking at, which that was fun. That was fun guest speaking. We didn't have really anything happen in the Dragon's Room until that 1 hour.
Right.
And then after that, other than the thing banging in that corridor.
That whole corridor experience was strange. We won't go into details.
That was strange.
That was strange.
But we had, what was cool is it was on a live stream too.
Yeah.
And that's also why I love live streaming. Is because everything is
and it's
weird
in
the moment.
Because we almost didn't do live streams. Almost. We almost, almost
so close. Yeah. And then we decided, well, here, we'll try it out. And now we do it all the time. Yep. I like it.
I enjoy it. And plus, too, that way, if anything happens, whoever's watching gets to experience it with us.
The raw emotions and the holy crap, what just happened look on our faces of...
Right. But, that's what made it real, neat. And that's another thing. I think we had a mental hurdle there for a while where, we went to a few locations and nothing happened. But we, you have to realize that we're not doing this for entertainment value. Of course, we want to provide value.
Yeah.
Whether it's knowledge, entertainment, whatever.
And if we're going to do a live stream, we really hope that something will happen so that the people watch it won't feel like a waste of time them watching for an hour and nothing happens.
I would rather for people to watch for an hour and nothing happen than for anybody to think that we're faking it.
Right. Like us walking through a door, tap it, oh my God, what was that?
Right. No.
Start flying around the room.
Like I said, I would rather for nothing to happen than...
Yeah.
But that's another interesting experiment. Who was it? Was it the New Yorkers? Or who was it that they actually...
yeah, they had...
And yes, folks, we're jumping around a little bit, but...
Yeah, it was... Correct me if I'm wrong. They were doing a seance, and they had a mix of believers and skeptics.
Right.
And nothing was happening, and some of the people started faking stuff.
One of the researchers faked a tap.
Right, and then they did that a few times, and then they didn't fake anything else, and stuff really started to happen because everyone in the room was saying, "There's something here. Something is happening."
So once those floodgates were open,
right, because your mind, especially
because correct me if I'm wrong, they even got to the point where they could levitate the table in those experiments and everything. Yeah,
because you have that mind of, okay, nothing. Sometimes you get first off with spirit box songs that nothing's happening, they must not want to talk, nothing's actually here. Then you have a voice or a tap, and it's like, holy crap, there is something happening, and your mind's open. Let's see what else they have to say.
Right.
And then that's when, like you said, the floodgates are open.
Right, and sometimes you got to know too when to turn it off.
Yeah, because there are times when you do turn it off.
Right.
There are times. I mean, but how do you know when to turn it off? Like, if there's a hairy situation going on, you've run into some big bad entity that's doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff. Do you stop it right there? Like, nope, this is uncomfortable, I'm done. Do you just stop it right there? Or do you... do you conclude that experience to where it's not going to follow you, it's not going to do anything else? So for something like that, when do you know when to stop?
Well, you answered your own question you had the answer in your question.
Right.
As soon as you said the word uncomfortable, that's when you have to start saying, okay, I'm not comfortable with this. Then you start backing out of the situation.
Right.
Or you put it on terms to where you are comfortable.
Kind of like us in the St. Albans hallway. That was an uncomfortable situation.
Right, that's the reason I made you stop. I said stop,
And then we left the hallway.
And then we had to put it back more on our terms.
Right.
Because how many instances and old stories and stuff like that, and people say, "Oh, ghosts never hurt anybody." No, but people running away from ghosts sure tear up a lot of stuff, and and all that.
I mean, look at the pain we have suffered running into doors or benches.
I never run into either.
Oh, be quiet. Okay, I might be a little clumsy, a little bit, but it's never on purpose, and I just get, I don't know, into it, just thinking, okay, we need to go to this location. We need to.
And that's why even when things go south and turn bad, and all that,
You still have to keep a level
right,
head.
The worst thing you can do is lose your head.
Not literally, but figuratively.
Keeping your head will get you out of probably 90% of the situations you'll get into in life, whether it's paranormal or otherwise. The person that can keep calm in a quote unquote hectic situation is the person that's probably going to get out the least scathed from everybody else. There was an instance, there was this haunted place, and me and some of my friends, this was back years ago, we went and checked it out. Something happened, and the whole group just scattered, just ran for it. And I turned and watched these people, and there was a barbed wire fence that went around part of the property we were on, and I watched two people run into the barbed wire fence. And if you've ever run into a barbed wire fence, it's not a pleasant experience, and they did this at night running full blast, and it's just, out of the six of us, probably one of them at least needed stitches, and the other, 3 or 4 were banged up pretty good, and that was just from running away.
Right.
Something happened that made them run. I'm not going to deny what happened, but them running from it is where all the injuries came from.
So Spirit got, a bad rep.
Well, the Spirit didn't get a bad rep because, they realized, well, it was our dumb butts for running the way we did, and all that.
Whoops.
It was a scary, and that location had, it's got a ton of ghost stories. Here's another thing. Why do certain locations have a ton of different ghost stories attached to them? This location, I'm not going to mention it by name because there could be liabilities for people going and checking it out. But like there's a faceless guy, there's a Bigfoot type creature, there's a couple of ghost stories attached to it, and just all these different stories attached to this one spot. How does one spot, is there, I don't know, a paranormal magnet? Is it something about the land? That's something else that's always intrigued me.
Do you think it could also be for locations like that in different locations, people go to it more because not just a paranormal magnet for the spirits, but like a paranormal magnet for people? Like, you have 2 cemeteries, both are the same age, they have the same amount of people there, they don't really have anyone special buried in either one of note, but one has these really creepy looking trees. Do you think that they're both going to be, okay, they both have shadow people, or do you think one, there are creatures that come out of the trees and they chase you, the trees come alive?
And then it goes back to our previous conversation. How much of this is reality and how much of it is created? I don't know. But that's where, I'm glad that you're a big researcher and a history buff. Mm-hmm. Because I learned that early on, that you can hear some really cool stories, but you do a little bit of research and you find out, unfortunately, half the legends, half the cool legends aren't true. Does that detract from a place? No. But at the same time, I like having that knowledge.
I'm going to be honest. A location with a story that proves to be false, that makes me slightly more interested, because why did this get started? Because I'm a believer that in a lot of stories there's a kernel of truth.
For sure.
And if there is a one-legged pirate seen at this far inland sanatorium, but no such character ever existed, why are people talking about it?
Right.
So then again, for the 4th time we've gone back to this, the mental projection.
Could be.
And that's when you get into the debate of, is it good to research the history, the haunts of location, versus going in kind of blind? Because on one hand, if you do the research and all that stuff, like take St. Albans, I've researched the crap out of that location. I know in the bowling alley, people have seen this thing called red eyes. I know people have seen shadow people come from the back of the bowling alley. So if I go down there, I might not say physically, hey, let's look for this. This might happen. Got it in your mind. Right. So I don't know, would you still experience that if we booked the investigation and then never looked anything about St. Albans until, we never look into it? Would we still experience the shadow and the red eyes? You
just answered, you asked that question. You don't know. You don't know. Or it could have been, a totally different experience.
Right.
And right. I mean, are the experiences we have based upon preconceived notions.
Right.
Or, you might go there, you might have watched a scary movie a week before and a piece of it lodged in your subconscious. Right. And then you have this experience, and in the scary movie, a little troll-like thing attacks a family, and you're in the bowling alley and you see like a little troll type, who knows? I don't know. I can't answer that question. But that's one of the questions I ask myself.
Right. Which is why usually a good long while before an investigation, I don't watch anything scary.
Well,
just so it doesn't get lodged. And also, going back that, not just projecting it, but, hey, this reminds me of that moment in that horror movie where the thing came out of the door. Oh, no, the door just opened. Something's going to come out.
Right.
And then the house might settle, and you're like, it's the killer from that movie in spirit form.
Well,
when it's just the house settling.
My philosophy, and something, I've tried to tell you, is at least a good 70% of what you think is paranormal is not.
Right.
But then sometimes you get in those situations where you better pay attention to everything,
It's a pretty creepy 30% there.
Right. And that's cool, Yeah. It's like people say, oh, well, Project Blue Book, disproved 98% of all UFO sightings. Well, then what's the other 2%?
Yeah.
It's like, real quick, tell me what the other 2% is,
And then that's what they look. They're like, "Oh crap!"
But that's what we've always, strive for. What, and it's frustrated some people that we've been around. It's this happens, and it's like, well, it could have been a draft, it could have been this, and all that, because we try to explain everything off that we can.
Right. Skeptical until proven otherwise.
Right. Or open-minded skeptical. Because I do believe in the paranormal, but at the same time, if I can explain something off, then I'm going to. Mm-hmm. And then it's that one or two things that you can't explain. Then that's the stuff that we live for. It's like, wow, I cannot explain why that door slammed with the windows closed, and if you can't explain it, then that's what makes it even better. Do we throw out some evidence and don't talk about some things, but that were paranormal? Probably.
Yeah.
But I would rather go that route with it than every little bump, every little knock, every little sound, being, and I'm not going to throw off on anybody or any group or anything like that.
Right.
But, I would rather stay skeptical, and I would rather for not reporting anything or not having anything happen than to make it look like something happened.
Right.
Because I think that's a dangerous trap. And plus, too, that can put mental stress on you when you go to a location. It's like, oh, something's got to happen,
yeah.
And all that. It's better to go in, and be really loose with the situation. It's like, let's see what happens.
You just let it happen naturally.
Right, and get excited about it,
Something that I think would be interesting to try is detect people's brain activity before, during, and after a paranormal experience.
That has been done by, who did that? There was a couple of different labs that did
Was it Duke University, maybe?
I want to say Duke was one of them. I think that was the same experiments where they experimented with EMF and found out that they could recreate a lot of, the paranormal, for lack of another term, symptoms with, electromagnetic fields. I want to say it was the same one, but I can't remember if it was Duke. Lord, I've read so much over the years. I don't, some of it I don't remember.
Because I know Duke, for a good long while there, they had the paranormal torch in terms of scientific research that was actually approved by university and, I guess, mainstream science, in a sense.
It was them, correct me if I'm wrong, Berkeley?
I think Berkeley. Was UVA involved at that time?
Seemed like afterwards.
Yeah, because I know, UVA was... Because when Duke shut down its lab or privatized it, a lot of the files were moved to UVA, so it probably would have been after.
Yeah, and I don't know how much they're still into it or not. It'd be an interesting thing. We're right here in the valley. We should check that out and find out.
Yeah, I know Duke, their paranormal lab is open to the public last time I checked. It might have changed, but I did read something a few years ago that said that it is open.
Because that's something else I'd like to get into, because these people have researched physical causes of paranormal feelings, things like that, and that's something I'd like to learn a whole lot more about, so that way when we're out in the field we can alleviate those as possibilities,
and that just adds more
validation to it.
To experiences. And there's a part that would make the experiences kind of cooler,
right?
Because there's this gigantic checklist that you just signed off on what it could be. and you still don't have an explanation for
Right.
an experience or a spirit box response.
Right. And that's what we're just trying to narrow it down. And like I said, so people watch our videos in the future, if we're getting away from the spirit box, it's not because we don't agree with it or anything
We're just
like
trying,
that. We're trying
some
something
other
right.
different. I know here recently we've looked into frequencies and different things like that.
I'm with you on this experiment. I am. I would like to know more because I've read some and I've studied some on how different acoustic waves affect the human mind. Right. So I would like to know a little bit more about that part of it. But no, I'm on board. I think it's a really interesting experience.
And it's an interesting idea, a substitution for white noise that supposedly works better.
Right.
So that part, and of course, like the group I'm reading about, they were believers definitely in the open flame experiments, and basically for them it was a requirement that there had to be an open flame.
Right. Yeah, I've gone, with psychic types or different paranormal types and all that. They would not, if you didn't have that flame burning, they didn't want nothing to do with it. And for them, it was like an early warning system or like a protection type deal.
Kind of like to let you know when something's entered the area.
Right. Because like I said, I've seen some candles, some flames like candles do weird things. We sat and watched one night as a spirit would move closer or further away from us. Mm-hmm. The candle flame would literally bend, not pulsate like it does in the wind, and all that, but literally stay burning steady.
But
it would
over.
bend to where it was completely sideways, burning one side of the candle.
That's kind of creepy.
It was a creepy place.
But we're just about done with this episode of the Fife Files. Chris, for someone who just had a paranormal experience, what would you suggest they do first?
Take a deep breath.
Okay.
That would be the very first thing. Anytime that anything like that happens, the first thing you do is take a deep breath. And then the mistake a lot of people make is they don't tell anybody. They don't look for help. They don't look for, because not all paranormal experiences are negative.
Right.
I mean, we lived in a house with a ghost, and he was the man liked to play jokes, and that's what it boiled down to, and all that. So not all paranormal experiences, I think, from the other side, are meant to be negative. Mm-hmm. But I think sometimes the way we perceive them is negative, and that's the reason I always tell people, take a deep breath and calm down first. And then in this world today, we're lucky now because there is so many people that's open to this, and there's so many people willing to talk about it and experience it, that you're really not alone with these experiences now.
Right.
Before, when I first started studying this and really getting into it, coming out of the 70s and the 80s when I was just a young kid, we're talking 6, 7, 8 years old, you start talking about stuff like this and you got the devil in you, it was horrible, even coming in, through the 80s into the 90s, you didn't talk about this kind of stuff,
right.
So it was, when I was really, really first getting into this, it amazed me how many people would come by where I lived, or they would hear about me through word of mouth or friends or whatever, and and then I ended up in some interesting experiences just because there was nobody else for them to talk to.
Right. So Chris, we have 2 minutes left in our first episode. I'd like to thank everyone who tuned in to our first episode of the Fife Files. This is pretty fun.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it.
This is going to be a weekly thing on Fridays. Like you said at the beginning of the show, if you have any suggestions for a show you would like to see us do, comment in the comment section below, message us on Facebook, Twitter. We have an email as well, and all links to our social media sites will be posted in the comments below. So, Chris, this was fun.
I've enjoyed it.
From us here at Fife Paranormal, I'm Jake.
And I'm Chris.
Have a great night, everyone.